Multipolarity is aspirational and not operational.
Well, I personally don't feel the multipolarity exists or will exist ever. This is my view. Everybody is
That's coming
chasing
from a
the dream.
diplomat, sir.
Yeah, everybody is chasing the dream.
Okay.
Why? I look at it. I am looking at it, the global churn which is taking place right now. Eventually, this will become a Cold War 2.0, which means there will be a China centric and there will be a US centric, whatever the world there is. Russia might align with China more. That will not be necessarily like the Cold War 1.0, when there was no multipolarity in that sense. But that time, it was all together, political, economic, everything. This time, you will have poles, two poles, which will be competing with each other on geopolitical and geotechnological manner. But geoeconomically, you will have many countries and powers like India, like others, which are the center of economic power. Those will be very much there. Our job as India is to align those countries and make them into a different grouping, which will have its own heft. So I have a different view on this. Everybody talks about what multipolarity? I mean, what are we talking about? Who cares? I mean, America goes and attacks everybody. Nobody cares. Russia goes and attacks anyone. China does whatever it wants. So, multipolarity is when you can stand up and say, no, it's thus far and no further. Nobody has that kind of a capacity to confront. US is the only power today, is the hyperpower, despite the fact that whatever we may say about that. So, this is Jungle Raj. There is no international law today. So, when it is not there, then what kind of multipolarity are we talking about? Multipolarity without multipolar institution. Do you think United Nations has any heft?
So I was coming to that. In fact, in our last previous podcast, I had asked you about the relevance of United Nations.
Yeah.
And if you see this entire, I don't see United Nations is just missing.
Look at the Board of Peace that Trump suggested for Gaza.
जिसमें पाकिस्तान भी wanted
Pakistan
to be
ठीक
a
है.
part, right?
13 countries, 2 countries, China and Russia abstained. What have they said? The Security Council resolution? That Trump's proposal for having a Board of Peace has been approved by United Nations Security Council, because that provides some countries the cover to send their forces.
When two Security Council members have
Abstained.
abstained.
They had veto, but they abstained.
So because Trump has said it, it has to get approved.
So it is the Trump's body, basically. So that shows you the what kind of action the United Nations is able to take. But don't blame the United Nations. Yeah? After all, the United Nations is a body which has people in that, countries in that. If the countries don't want it to function, it will not function.
Sir, may I beg to differ with you?
Yeah,
on that?
please do.
I totally understand that, United Nations is a body of nations, but there's something called a statesmanship from the Secretary General.
What will he do?
I
Poor
mean,
fellow
at
has
least-
been... Israel bans his entry into the country. And he is a member of the United Nations. What are you saying? I mean, UN organizations are not being allowed to operate in the countries under the guard.
He was locked in Egypt also, right, sir?
Yeah,
Obviously,
they
that's
say
not a problem.
bomb the United Nations and nothing happens. What? I mean, why I'm saying so? Who's saying that? These are members. At the end of the day, the United Nations is not some esoteric body. It is something that has been made by the countries so that there is a rule of law, that there is some kind of a stability and security in the global domain, that there is a place you can talk to, that the Security Council will behave in a more responsible manner than parochial manner, which is what they're doing it today. UN Security Council is divided into G3 versus G2.
Sir, how many Gs are there, by the way? I mean, because there was G20, there was G7, G8, now we're talking about G2, G3.
No, G2 is China, Russia. G3 is the France, US and Britain.
Sir, is it not romanticism to just make an elitist club every time? It's like
President Trump wants G2 only. You have seen it. He has said himself with China. He prefers that kind of thing. He's going to China in May.
So, sir,
So, I mean, you see, it's the game of the powerful, like the rich man.
so where's diplomacy and where is
Diplomacy
civilization?
Despite that, you try to extract the maximum mileage for yourself. That's the diplomacy is all about. Try to keep, you see, it's in our interest that the peace prevails. So, 99% of the countries want the same thing what we want. It's only a few who are, because of whom the situation is the way it is today. And we know all of them.
So it reminds me of a typical.
The biggest bane, my friend, of the United Nations, I'm sorry, the Security Council is the P5 countries.
Can you elaborate that, sir?
Yeah, I mean, they are the ones who don't allow anything to function.
The Security Council.
Security Council members, permanent five,
And sir, if you
veto wielding powers.
basically who are allied powers. I mean, if you look at it from the World War II, the allied countries by and large,
Yeah,
with an exception of China and Russia.
yeah. No, allied powers, you see, they, at that time, I mean, if you see the leaders at that time, they had ideals. They wanted, okay, now we have seen 50 million people dead. We have seen the disaster happening. Like, no, it should not happen again. But in last 80 years, the same countries have undermined the whole so-called international law.
They are the biggest violators.
So, you don't listen to International Court of Justice. You don't listen to International Criminal Court. You don't listen to World Trade Organization. You don't. So what do you listen to? So, I mean, it's still, it is a place where every country can go and speak its mind. That is there. Despite that, everybody equally has one vote each, but that vote should count.
So isn't United
So
Nations?
reforms of the United Nations is extremely important, and it is not happening again because of the same P5 countries.
So sorry if I may say this, but is it right to say United Nations has become like an old Gymkhana club? People going, spending
I'm
time.
not a member of Gymkhana Club.
Okay.
So don't ask me.
You always have a perfect answer to any such question, sir. So let me ask you something. Can you define what's terrorism? Because there's always a question and there's always a debate. One man's terrorist is the other man's freedom fighter. So, in absolute way, what is terrorism? Because we denounce any kind of terrorism.
No,
What is
the thing is, the terrorism is what? There is something called a genuine grievance of the people. But the moment they resort to violence against innocent civilians, then it becomes terrorism.
Okay.
That's the definition. I mean, what is wrong with it? I mean, you can protest, you can do whatever you want to. You do against the system, fight against the system in legitimate manner. But the moment you start, attacking people, innocent people, civilians are dying for whatever reason, I mean, that is terrorism. And now it's become an industry. The countries like Pakistan, which are like, for them, an instrument of foreign policy. It's a low-cost option for them. So as long as you don't make it a costly option for them, like we did in Op Sindhu, they are going to continue to resort to it. And it's unfortunate, and I mean, I must compliment PM Modi in this, frankly. One leader who stood up in United Nations and expressed his disdain. He said, so far, international community has not been able to agree to a single definition of terrorism. So what question you are asking is exactly the same.
So it's not as stupid as it may think,
No,
because
it's not.
it's something that the leaders are not able to identify or
They don't identify
that.
not because they don't know what it is.
they just don't have the guts to do it.
No, they just don't want to do it because they can use these things. Terror groups are being used, they are propagated, they are produced by them as an instrument of their foreign policy.
So you have always written about India's moral authority in international affairs of decades,
Correct,
right?
absolutely.
And you just mentioned that, and if I understand it rightly, terrorism is basically act against innocent, unarmed people who voice their dissent or differences. Let's put it this way. Is that the right definition?
Yeah, there are many ways of, frankly, expressing your disconcert with the system or like your unhappiness about a situation, achieving your goals, whatever you want to. But then, it causes a complete destabilization in the thing. And then non-state actors have become so very violent and that they have become parallel governments.
No, so here again I wanted to ask you about India's stand. This was on 23rd January that there was, where I think there was a January 23rd vote happened in United Nations, where India did not object or abstained from condemning or from taking a stand against Iran killing its own civilian population. The numbers are anywhere between 7,000 to 30,000.
You see, you have to understand one thing. And we also have our ambassadors there, right? And who send us reports as well.
So,
Now, in Iran, what was happening is people are unhappy because of the economic situation. They were dissatisfied with the regime's non-performance or repression. they have had their problems. They started going for their own, protest against it. But those protests, we could see very well, were also being promoted by external actors. And that's when the problem happened. That's when the state. You see, you cannot be simply watching when somebody goes violent. When you start killing a policeman, you can't expect a policeman to stand and watch. That's how the violence happened. Then figures are something that can be disputed by both sides. Americans will call it 30,000, next day call 40,000, or Israelis will say more. Till today they are saying the same thing. They said we have to create an internal revolt in the country. So to that kind of a situation, I think it is not, nor do we like or nor we want that to happen.